Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now, Paul Ukonu is a noted fashion and a celebrity photographer, utilizing his platform to spread awareness about human trafficking, and he's here to tell me all about his 300 project. Welcome to the morning show, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to have you here. So, celebrity photographer, fashion photographer. I always ask photographers, how do you decide which aspect of photography you want to focus on?
I think we decide based on what we like. So for example, I can't call myself a wedding photographer. I don't shoot weddings. I don't also say celebrity photographer because I don't understand it. I still don't understand the definition. Does it mean someone who shoots celebrities or somebody that has become popular to be called a celebrity? So I just call myself a portrait and fashion photographer.
But you've taken photos of tons of celebrities. I think that's why you're a celebrity photographer.
Okay.
Maybe that's why.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's why. But how did you get into the photography industry?
I was working in an NGO and we went for, I've always loved it, but I can't call that photography. But yeah, I used to work in an NGO called IYPTDI, and this platform was, it was a youth development NGO in Abuja. And I went to a community, they were doing this community development project, and that's how I picked up the camera. From then, I just, became interested in photography.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's just dictated a new career for you.
New career. And
so what were you before you became a photographer?
I used to work in an IT company. I used to work in an education company that sent students to, abroad for studies. A lot of hustle. But then again, when the photography thing came, I loved it very well because even growing up, I've always wanted to, have a magazine, like a fashion magazine.
Right.
So I think when the photography thing came, I said, you know what, this is a channel. It seems more like it, and that's why, that's it, basically.
That's how it started. Okay, so human trafficking is something that actually occurs, but I don't think it's something we talk about enough. I went to a gallery in VI and there were images of the rights before they can actually be shipped abroad, So there's a lot of ritual rites that they do. They scar them, they do incantations, they take oaths that they will never run away from the person taking them, all of that. And it was very fascinating for me because I've heard about human trafficking, but to actually see it in depth like that, was like, so this is actually a thing, But you have taken it upon yourself now to actually shed light on it. You are talking about it. You are doing more than talking about it. You actually have a project, the 300 project, dedicated to enlightening people about human trafficking. Tell me more about it.
All right. Let me tell you how it started, how I faced this. Right from time, I did a project for STARE campaign, UNICEF in the past. I've always loved, projects, social, pictures that can bring more enlightenment to social issues. But last year, I had the opportunity, I spoke to a victim. And I think that's when everything changed because, like I always say, I had been very judgmental. It's always, the case where you say, they want to travel now. It's easy for us to say these things. And I don't know, I don't think people have heard, enough about it. We just hear stories once in a while. No one is doing anything about it. So when I spoke to this victim, from there I got to, speak to a couple of people, and I understood that this is different. It is deep and it is sad. And if we continue like this, we are going nowhere in this country. When people, our young ones keep, going through this process. Anyways, I knew if I come out to tweet about it, I'm just, or
adding your voice to many voices.
Exactly. What can I say? I needed something that will get people's attention. What will get people's attention? What will get the world to ask, what is this about? Once you can draw people to the issues, then it's more like doing, let's say, running against cancer. You host a marathon. When people hear, it's not just about the marathon, it's the cause.
The cause.
So I said, I started thinking, and then I thought about, how about gather, a lot of women together? Since it's, it's my, part of the industry, I take pictures, 90% women.
Right.
How can I bring these women together, rural women, and do a group portrait, or let me use the word, the best portrait the world has ever seen. They're all going to be dressed in white. It's going to be very arty to end in an exhibition. So I just had this wild idea. And of course, it was a bit unrealistic because I'm like, first of all, where do you get, 300 women from? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But then again, I think late May, I just said, you know what? I don't care again. I can't keep waiting for sponsorship or someone to come and drop money on my lap and say, okay, no, you can do this. I just said, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. And that's how I released the project.
Right. A lot of great ideas, I'll just add, always start off not making sense.
Exactly.
And then they become a huge thing.
And then, what has kept me going is people's response. And it's unbelievable. When I, decided to do this, I started getting support from people. People were encouraging me. We started reaching out to these women. I was getting people to nominate, celebrities, normal people, just nominate, because we're not shooting victims. These 300 women are not victims.
Right.
These are rural women. And why rural women? They are the ones who go through this. Their children, mostly are the ones who go through, the issue of trafficking. I mean, where we are, the position we are, my sister, yourself, we can't see ourselves going through that kind of process. We're a bit educated about it. So I think, the rural people are the ones that are affected. So why not we use the mothers in those communities, bring them from all over Nigeria, from Kano, get them from different places and then, do this project. So that's the idea.
First question that came to me, though, was why 300? What does 300 signify?
I don't know why it sounds weird, but it was more about the movie 300. Of course, they say it's not a real story, that 300 people went to fight in a war. Yeah. But 300 to a lot of people who have gone, watched the movie and, heard about the patients and, it signifies strength.
Right.
And then the number, it's a very strong number. So when I thought about 300, I'm like, well, that'll work. 100, someone has done 100. Okay. Someone has done 150. Oh, wow. 300 is more like a record.
All right. So where are we now?
We are almost there. I'm collaborating with a lot of people now, and it's a bit unrealistic because I didn't know they would be interested in the project. So, we have I'm in talks with the African Union. Nice. I've met with the DG of NAPTIP. Nice. The Women Affairs. It's almost like everyone is now.
I'm listening to you now and I'm like, hey, I'm interested.
We have the Bimbo Akintola, Ramsey is always calling, a lot of them, are 20DK is part of it. Everyone is like, when are you doing this, So I'm like, okay, that's what has kept me going. So yeah, so far it's good.
So how would you say social media has helped, with this cause?
As an individual, I started this project. I didn't do this project with ₦1. It's all social media. Because when I started, I said, to push this kind of project, to get people to hear about it first, it's going to cost a lot of money. But what I can do as a photographer and someone who's worked with all these celebrities who have strong voices, why not get them, to do something? So I did, got my graphic designer, we designed flyers and got them to say, I stand with the 300. That was it. So, basically, they all started, campaigning about and that was it. So anytime I maybe walk up to NAPTIP or any organization and tell them, this is what I'm doing, like, oh, I've heard about it, tell me, so it helped, to reduce, my explanation, which was a good idea.
That's the power of social media.
That's it.
A lot of times people think on social media there's no good that can come out of it, but
no, it's
that's not actually accurate.
I've gotten calls, ridiculous calls from Kenya, from Mozambique, from South Africa. And, Kenyan celebrities are also coming together for the project. Ghana, the very strong part of it now, Juliet Ibrahim, Claudia of Glitz Magazine. So, we have people from all over Africa jumping on this project. So one of the ideas we had now was, since the 300 project is to stop or to campaign against the trafficking of young African women, specifically, young African women. I feel they are the most vulnerable, So that's where we're focusing on. And, a lot of Africans are jumping on it, asking me, Paul, how do we help? I was even invited, to Senegal to come and talk about the project. And I'm like, when I started, I didn't think it was going to be like this, but I think the progress it's working. And that's the idea, to address the issues. And hopefully we can do something about it.
Yeah, Yeah, so how has this project exposed you to the realities of human trafficking? I'm sure with this you've had to like do more research, understand more, and like we said earlier, there are certain misconceptions, you know, about human trafficking. We just think they want to travel,
yes,
you know. But what are some deep truths and realities about human trafficking that we don't necessarily know as a society?
I'll give you an example. A 17-year-old girl walks 30 minutes to school in Edo State, 30 minutes. And of course, it's very frustrating for her walking back and forth. And there was a day she was walking back and rain was beating her. Her mom owns a small shop. A lady came to her, that's her story. She's 17, secondary school. A lady came to her and said, you don't need to be suffering like this. We can help your mom, we'll take you to a better place. She doesn't need to hear any other thing other than what this lady said. Everyone wants to go abroad. Little did she know what she was going to do. Of course, she was stuck at Libya, and then, you know, they had to bring her back after, you know, her nasty experience. We can't even talk about that on TV. You know, so when I heard this story, I told myself, this is madness. Yeah. Imagine she had an idea what this woman, there are questions she should have asked. Yeah. There are questions her mom should have asked. Yeah. You know, so it's unrealistic. There's a particular guy who has a deep cut on his head, you know, from, you know, an axe or machete or whatever it is. You know, in Libya, he was bleeding. You know, there's too many issues. Like when I talk to, everyone has a story. Yeah. You know, and these are the stories. We're also planning, there's going to be a book called The 300. This one will address the victims. You know, people need to read these stories. Yeah. You know, people want to address different angles. You know, some people go out of poverty, someone deceived them. Yeah. You know, they even use education to deceive them now. That's the latest. So, you know, recently there was a report about people, you know, they went to school and got some girls from school to further their education, you know, and they go, it's sad. And I think we should do something about it. I mean, I'm not even saying my 300 project will end, you know, trafficking. But it's a foundation. Yeah, it's a foundation to get people aware. I want to work with the African Union to start outreach programs in Africa. I don't have an NGO. I'm not interested in that for now. I mean, my own focus is how do I bring these issues out? My photography, moving forward, I said after my birthday, which was June 20th, I said this year, my photography will be less about, you know, taking beautiful portraits of people. I won't stop there, but it to be less about that and more about addressing social issues because I know there's a need, and I need to use my art to, you know, bring these things, you know, out. I discussed with the, you know, the DG of NAPTIP, you know, a few days ago, and I heard what she's doing about the issue of trafficking and how they want to include it in schools, their curriculum, and then I'm like, yeah, that's a very strong step. Because it's a bold step.
The best kinds of collaborations are the ones between the public sector and the private sector.
Very key.
So if the private sector is running with the vision, but there are no policies backing that vision, then a lot of times those visions cannot fly beyond a certain stage. So I'm glad that NAPTIP is doing this, because my next question was going to be the government's involvement in all of this, you know. What is the government doing, and can they do more, in your opinion?
You know, to be honest with you, you know, I spoke to her. NAPTIP is under the, you know, the government agency, and I think, you know, they're doing, you know, okay, but they can do a lot better, to be honest. And you know, I know that these issues, the government doesn't take it seriously. I want to tell you that. You know, there's always, okay, I release a budget for this, people should solve it. No, but we can do better. You know, last year we heard about the whole Libya thing, and it became public.
Yes, I remember the award-winning documentary by CNN, yes.
It hasn't slowed down.
It hasn't?
No. It's massive. You know, we still have people in, you know, in Benin marking people, telling them they're going to die. There's even a story about a girl who was thrown away from the boat by fellow Nigerians because, you know, there was a report that they called their jazz guy, you know, and there was a report that she was the one that was making the boat not to get to its destination, you know, all those... So
as you speak, what I'm hearing is a lack of education. It's a lot of illiteracy. People need to be enlightened. You know, a lot of people need to be enlightened. Paul, just hold that thought. Yeah, we have to go on a break now. When we return, Paul will still be here. Don't go away.